Okay, guys, if you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. Great, appreciate it. And can you guys see my screen okay? Give me a thumbs up. Okay, guys, if you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. Great, appreciate it. And can you guys see my screen okay? Give me a thumbs up. So we're live streaming to Facebook. I guess I need to go ahead. Okay, guys, if you can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. All right, so we're going to mute that. Otherwise, that's going to get really unnerving. Well, welcome. So this is part 2 in a 3-part series on how to get properties nothing down and get paid when you do it. How many people like that idea? Doing properties, getting properties, nothing down and getting paid when you do it. All right. So first of all, this is a Real Investors event. We begin our events with a prayer. Please join with me. Dear Lord, we thank you so much for keeping us safe, for keeping us protected, and most importantly, keeping us focused on the main thing and not being distracted. Lord, we just ask you continue to bless us, continue to have your hands on our families, our children, our businesses, and most importantly, in all things that we be a reflection of you. In Jesus' name, amen. So as I said before, this is a 3-part series. Just a quick recap before we bring on our special guest for this evening. Part 1, we talked about how to identify specific parts of town in the greater Washington, D.C. region where you can, in fact, pick up properties and then structure these deals where you literally are putting none of your own money into the deal. And if you are so fortunate, getting paid every time you buy a high cash producing home. Now, I talk about doing this in the greater Washington, D.C. region, but the fact of the matter is you can do this anywhere in the United States of America. Every major city in this country has one particular part of town that the prices are depressed for one reason or another. But I'm not talking about going into war zones. I'm not talking about taking your life into your own hands. I'm not talking about strapping on a sidearm to go collect rent. None of that crap. I'm talking about simply that prices are depressed below the rest of the region because it's the quote unquote working blue collar, working part of town. In the greater Washington, D.C. area, that of course is Prince George's County. So it's a 3 simple step process. Step 1, pick the right kind of house. And the right kind of house is going to be in the right kind of neighborhood that maybe the crime's a little higher, maybe the schools are not quite as good as the rest of the region, but the schools are good enough, the shopping is good enough, the crime is acceptable, if there is such a thing. But most importantly, from an investor's perspective, that you can get $1,000 a month positive cash flow. I am not going to talk at all today about where these houses are, the zip codes that they're located, and specifically how to find them, because I talked about this in the very first of this series. So if you're coming in on the second part of the series, go find, I'll put a link in the recording. So this will be recorded. We'll put it in Real Investors U. We'll put it up on YouTube. In fact, it's live streaming now on YouTube. I'll put the link below so that you can go watch that first video. Now, do you have to watch them in order? No, you don't have to watch them in order, but at some point you do want to watch all 3. Each one of these lessons goes for about an hour to 90 minutes, an hour, 45 to 60 minutes worth of how to do it, along with a whole lot of Q&A. There was a whole lot of Q&A in the first one that we did. We captured all that. It is recorded. So go watch that first one. You don't have to go watch it now. You can watch these out of order, but at some point you need to watch all 3 of this series. And those of you who are here live, congratulations, good for you. We will have a question and answer period. So 3-step process. Step 1, you got to find the right kind of houses. And the most important thing is you want houses that have the ability to throw off $1,000 a month, of which these houses are in great abundance in Prince George's County, Maryland. That's the area in the greater Washington, D.C. area that most investors focus on if they want cash flow and appreciation, not cash flow or appreciation with no cash flow. If you want both, you're going to be and you're in the Washington, D.C. area, you're going to be spending time in Prince George's County. I am quite confident that in Atlanta, Chicago, Dallas, San Francisco, et cetera, keep on going, San Jose, keep on going, Tempe, Arizona, Phoenix area. There are places where you can find these kinds of deals. And I know firsthand because I do 3 or 4 of these a year. Last year we did 5 of them. And I've been doing this business now for almost 20 years. I started just after my son was born. Okay, so I date my time in the real estate business based on the age of my son, but I know these deals are here. They've been here for at least 20 years, and I'm sure they were here before I got started as an investor, and I'm sure they'll be here long after I'm gone. But the bottom line is this: the first step is picking the right houses. The second step is, of course, and again, here, if you're looking at me scroll through the slides, this is all the stuff that we covered and the reason why, et cetera, et cetera. But the second step in the process is to pick the right financing. And we're talking specifically today about the second part of the second part, which is how do you, in fact, get private investors into your deal along with the right kind of specialty funding, which we'll cover in our next lesson. So the next lesson we'll talk about in the third part of the series, we'll talk about the specialty lenders who will loan on these kinds of deals. But today we're focusing in on and we're drilling down on private investors. And we have a nationwide expert. As I oftentimes say, real estate is local, but money is national. In fact, money is global. And we've got a nationwide expert who's going to walk us through how to set up your own private bank. So again, just to sort of give the quick backstory, 3-step process for getting deals nothing down and getting paid. Again, I talk about DC because that's where I have my firsthand experience, but you can do this anywhere. If you're watching from Atlanta, if you're watching from Dallas, if you're watching from San Francisco, wherever, these kinds of deals are all across the country. Step 1, pick the right kind of house. Step 2, pick the right kind of financing. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. So without further ado, let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen and let's bring on our special guest for today. I see him out there. Kurt, where are you? There you are, Kurt.
What's up, man? How are you?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Man, I've seen you more in the last week than I have in the last 2 years.
I know. Lucky me.
I was considering myself lucky.
So for those of you who don't know Kurt, Kurt is Kurt Power. We call him Mr. Power because he is. He's a very powerful dude. Kurt used to be involved with a company that was doing private equity, helping basically investors who started off in houses and single-family houses and moved on into self-storage units. Before that, he was with a company, I'm sure you've heard of him, Think Realty, which is a major media company, an insurance company that supports real estate investors. So he's been around this business a long time, and now he is the director of development for Quest Trust Company. And Kurt's going to talk to us about the essential tool, the essential piece of the puzzle for building up your private investors and ultimately creating your own private bank to fund the portion of the deals that we're talking about, doing these specialized nothing down kind of deals where you actually get yourself paid every time you close a deal. So Kurt, you got some slides, you got some stories to tell?
I do indeed. I'm going to share my screen.
All right. Take it away, my man.
Looks like you got to give me permission. Boom. Share. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
All right. All right.
Oops. Let me get out of here. From beginning. All right. Can you guys see that?
That's good.
Fabulous. All right, guys. So I will start with this. I'm just a kid from nowhere, Iowa. I grew up in a little town of 150 people in Ollie, Iowa. And somehow, luck, chance, whatever you want to call it, I don't believe in that. I think everything happens for a reason. We're put where we are. And what we do with that defines our success. So I have always been able to put myself in the right position at the right time. I think that's my gift, if I have one, is I've always surrounded myself with people who are far smarter than I. I never want to be the smartest guy in the room. If I'm the smartest guy in the room, that's a serious problem. So, but nonetheless, I've been able to have great mentorship along the way in real estate. So I got my start in the fitness industry. I'm a fitness guy. I did powerlifting, strongman, bodybuilding, and I still train to this day, mostly now to sheer spite, just to hold off age. But it taught me discipline, dedication, the idea that if you start something, you finish it. And I believe very strongly in that. I think that that mentality will carry you far in life, but specifically as a real estate investor, because you're going to have obstacles. You have a ton of obstacles. You're going to be told no a lot. You're going to have some failures, but just like anything in life, anything worth doing is worth fighting and continuing to go on. So I believe that wholeheartedly. This isn't me sitting here preaching. It's some of my core values to stick to it and find a way, lean on each other. That's what we're here for. So one of the missing pieces of the puzzle that many people fail to identify as a real estate investor, no matter if you're doing single family, multifamily, commercial, self-storage, loaning money, whatever it is they neglect the money that they already have. Where this really resonated with me is after I left Think Realty and became a VP of Investor Relations for a self-storage syndicator here in Houston, Texas. Again, kid from nowhere, Iowa, suddenly I'm managing a $100 million self-storage portfolio. A little scary, $35 million of private equity, $35 million of people who are giving myself and our company the faith that we were going to give them good returns. Where do we find that money? Is it in our back pocket? Is it in our checking account? Is it our savings account? For some people, yes. But it was amazing to me when we would give presentations about self-storage and you tell somebody it's $50,000 minimum and they're like, whoa, I don't have 50 grand. Huh, you got an old 401k? Yeah. Man, I worked at Chevron for 20 years. It's got $500,000 in it. Well, guess what? You just solved your own problem. You got $500,000. Roll that over to an IRA. Now you can participate in the deal. Point I'm making is, and I think Sherman alluded to this, if you were at the Think Realty event last Saturday, you probably heard him say it as well, but friends, your family, yourself, people all around us have exactly what it is that we're looking for. In every networking event we go to, I kid you not, there are literally millions of dollars in the room that either people, A, they know about and they're looking to put to work, or B, they don't even know they have because they haven't had the proper education. And make no mistake, guys, the government is not going to share these secrets with you. It's up to people in the industry to impart this wisdom to you. Some of it you might think, man, it's too good to be true. Again, I kid you not. Everything I cover in this presentation is 100% real, 100% legal, 100% legitimate. And it goes without saying, guys, we know real estate works. We know it. Real estate's not on trial. The question is, how do you make real estate work for you? What I'm going to share is one method that can help you make this work for you. So we're going to talk tonight about real tax-free profits with self-directed IRAs. So throughout the course of this presentation, you'll get to know a little bit about me. You'll get to know a little bit about my background in real estate. But most importantly, you're going to get to know about Quest Trust Company and the things that really make us stand out in the industry. So again, Kurt Power, I'm a certified IRA specialist. What does that mean? It means I've taken a lot of tests, a lot of exams from the Texas Division of Banking, the American Board of Banking. I get paid to read tax codes. I get paid to interpret legal as it relates to IRA. I'm not a CPA. I don't have a broad knowledge of a lot of things. I'm an IRA specialist. I've got a very narrow focus and expertise on IRAs as it relates to the tax code. I'm also the director of business development with Quest Trust Company, so I get to do a lot of public speaking with groups like Sherman's and other people around the United States to help you empower yourself and have the ability to keep more of your money and more of your profit. So started out in fitness, got into real estate. I fell in love with entrepreneurship as a trainer in the fitness industry, because if you weren't training people, you weren't eating, you weren't putting a roof over your head. So I learned very quickly how to hustle, how to network, how to build a business. And that passion drove me to real estate. And as Sherman alluded to, myself, Eddie Wilson, and a handful of others created Think Realty, largest media platform for real estate investors in the entire world. Did the syndication thing, VP of Investor Relations for Pinnacle Storage Properties, $100 million portfolio, $35 million private equity. That is where I learned about self-directed IRAs. I was aware of self-directed IRAs, but I really learned it when we were raising money. Because the more I thought about it, I was like, man, why would somebody do that? Then I started to understand the tax strategies, the tax shelter aspect of it, and realizing about 30% of our investors were using an IRA to do so. You couple that with the way things are going in the workforce, automation, people losing their jobs, people taking early retirement, and then you have COVID-19, the pandemic just accelerated that that the need for early retirement. My parents were going to take early retirement in 2023. They took it this year because of the pandemic. And it kind of breaks my heart when I say my parents' total retirement is less than $500,000. So I pose the question, are my parents ever really going to retire? Probably not. My mom still works 35 hours a week and she's retired. So you kind of learn not only from your successes, but you can learn from mistakes, but you also learn by watching other people. So I love my parents dearly, but I don't follow their financial acumen. You know, I want to surround myself with people far smarter. It's not a shot at them. I just want something different. That path is what led me to Quest Trust. Knowing that IRAs were going to be one of the big demands in real estate over the next decade was my kind of hypothesis. And since I've been with Quest so far, it's been proven true. So we are the fastest growing self-directed IRA custodian in the entire country. We're the largest in Texas. And I'll show you some stats in that as we go on. But kind of the hallmarks of Quest and what made me want to join the company was the company culture. Man, we work extremely hard, but we have a lot of fun doing it. We whistle while we work. We make fun of each other. We joke. It's that kind of fraternity where we're all in this together. And it's the first environment I've been in where there's absolutely no stabbing each other in the back. Everybody supports each other. So it's a network I want to be a part of. These people are smarter than me. So I'm already knowing I'm in the right room. But the hallmarks for us is world famous customer service. We pick up the phone when you call us. It's a non-automated line. We put a ton of resources into our technology with the Quest Trust Company Investor Hub, the online portal, chat function. When you contact us during business hours, a live IRA specialist will talk to you via the chat function on our website. Highly trained and educated staff, man. All the way from the top of the company, the C-level employees, all the way down to the people answering the phone. We go through a rigorous training process. We're highly educated, and it's all in the means of getting things done quickly and efficiently for you, the client. So I base everything in life that I do, business, personal, what have you, on three things: like, trust, and respect. I think that as we go through this presentation, you learn more about me, self-directed IRAs, Quest Trust Company. My firm belief is that you will like, trust, and respect Quest Trust Company and want to know how you can get involved with us. So before I can get into all that, disclaimer, guys, not a CPA, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a tax advisor. The important thing from this is strictly for your guys' education. We at Quest Trust Company, in this presentation or any presentation we give, I cannot give you any tax, legal, or investment advice. I can't endorse anybody. I can't tell you what you should do. Self-directed means self-directed. You are the fiduciary to your account. So you're highly encouraged to talk to your advisors, your tax advisors, CPA, attorneys, people in this group, bounce ideas off Sherman, trusted advisors that you have, confidants that can help you vet deals. And due diligence, make no mistake, extends far beyond the deal. I can underwrite anything and show you a pro forma that looks like it's a home run, got your money, and man, now I'm gone. Do your due diligence on the people. Do your due diligence on people that are involved in it, whether it's a sponsor raising money, a potential partner on a joint venture. Know who you're doing business with and know what their track record is before you do anything, any kind of transaction with them. If you pass on the deal because they don't pass your like, trust, and respect test, guess what? 10 other deals down the road are going to fit your criteria. So this isn't a quick get rich quick, man. It's get rich over time and pass it on to your beneficiaries, create that legacy, generational wealth. Self-directed IRAs are a great way to help you with that strategy. Not sure why this is blacked out, but I'll read it to you. So who is Quest Trust Company? Largest self-directed custodian in the state of Texas. We currently have over 22,000 active investor clients with just over $2 billion in assets under administration, over 100 employees, with over a third of our employees holding the designation as a certified IRA specialist. So they may not even have the job title of IRA specialist. We have people in our transactions department, people in our compliance department, people answering the phone at the front desk. Our director of first impressions are certified IRA specialists. We are equipped to answer your questions. And guess what? If I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer. That's a great question. And I'm going to get you to the right person. This bottom number here, I don't know if you can see it. I know it's kind of blacked out and I can't highlight it and I just passed it. Let me go back. We have $350 million in undirected cash, guys. $350 million just sitting on the sidelines. What's the number one thing we all want? We all want money for deals, but what's the cherry on top? If it's not my money, it's other people's money. Same concept in IRAs. It's just other people's IRAs versus OPM. We call it OPI, and I'll touch on that later in the case study. So many of you may have a self-directed IRA. Many of you may not. I know that there's a large group here that's going to see this video again. So I want to make sure I'm respectful of everybody's education levels, both from the very beginning to the sophisticated. But just touch on this real quick, guys. A self-directed IRA, guess what? It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as a self-directed IRA. It's just a marketing term. But that means exactly what it states. Self-directed, me, the self, Kurt Power. If I have an IRA, I'm in charge of it. I'm picking the investments. I've done my due diligence on the deal, done my due diligence on the people. Quest Trust Company is the custodian. We're legally obligated once the client fills out specific direction of investment forms. They've read the deal, understand the deal, approve the deal. Quest now is legally obligated to fund that investment on behalf of the client. So there is no legal distinction between an IRA at Quest Trust and an IRA at Fidelity or Charles Schwab. The only difference is what the custodian allows you to invest in. We hold private assets and we are a real estate based company. Many of us are investors. This company is created by real estate investors for real estate investors. Quincy Long and Nathan Long, two brothers, CEO and president of the company, created this company 18 years ago with the investor mindset in mind. So just understand, guys, it's not to say an IRA at Quest or any other comparable custodian is better than Fidelity. It just means it's a different asset class that you can use that account to invest in. And we'll touch on why that is very, very important when you have both inside of your portfolio. So just understand that this type of self-direction truly gives you the best of both worlds. And now you're truly diversified. So why should you have one? Again, we kind of covered that. There is no legal distinction with self-directed IRA, but some of the benefits, diversification is a big one, guys. Spread your risk. Market volatility, COVID pandemic, housing crisis of a decade ago. If you were leveraged to the hilt in one asset class, you probably did not do very well. But if you were diversified, you spread that risk out. Whenever there's market volatility, hopefully you've got some stability on one side or the other of your portfolio. So again, very important. I'm a self-directed IRA specialist at Quest Trust. We focus on real estate, but I'm here to tell you, ideally, you've got both, public and private. Tax savings, this is the big advantage here, guys. Keep more of your money. Certain types of accounts can get you a tax deduction for yourself or your business. Certain types of accounts allow you to actually take that money out completely tax-free in the case of a Roth IRA or some of our specialty accounts, which I'll cover, where you can use after-tax dollars for specific purposes for healthcare and education. Control, invest in the things that you know best. You guys are real estate investors or aspiring to be real estate investors. I'm not a proponent to say you should do every single deal in a self-directed IRA. Do both. Do both. Do a deal with your own money. Put that money in your pocket, get to live on it today, add it to your lifestyle if that's what you want to do, or recycle it and do another deal. Do a handful of deals in a self-directed IRA because that allows you to have another bucket of money, not only to continue to do deals with now, but that benefit coming in the future when you retire, take those distributions, that's your bucket of money for later. You can have your now money now using your own personal funds, and you can have that bucket of money in retirement because you've done some investments with your IRA. Social investing, guys. A lot of people think this is fluff, but I happen to believe this is very, very important, as important as the other benefits. When we're real estate investors, what are we doing? What is it we're doing? Yes, we're making money for ourselves and our families and future generations, but we also are having the ability to improve our neighborhoods, fixing up that eyesore property and making it something beautiful. We're giving people a second chance at potentially putting a roof over their head. So even though it may not be a house that you and your family would live in, guess what? There is a family that will live in it. And that's very, very important. When we talk about the benefits of tax savings, diversifications, I make money tax-free. I can make a very strong, valid argument. I can do a whole other presentation on how social investing is just as important, because if you want to keep what you got to give it away, guys. You got to pass this on to the next generation, pass this on to the community around you, and raise everybody else up. And I know Sherman's a proponent of this, man. You start catching some fire as an investor and you're doing good things. Guess what's going to happen? They're going to start asking you, how are you doing it? How can I get involved? Again, this is where you find people. So we have 7 types of plans at Quest that can all be self-directed individually, or this is key, they can be partnered together. We break these down into 3 categories: personal, employer, and specialty plans. The personal plans are probably the ones you've most heard of: traditional IRA and Roth IRA. They're the most popular because they're the ones that most people have. If I leave my job with 401k, I roll that thing over, it's going to a traditional IRA. Nothing wrong with that. I'm getting tax deferred growth. I don't get taxed now today. I get taxed in the future when I take my distributions. Or maybe they've got a Fidelity account that they do the stock market with. It's all pre-tax. But if I could do my investments completely tax-free, $100,000 house, cash flows of $1,000 a month, and when I'm down the road 59 and a half years of age, I can take it all out tax-free. Is tax-free or tax-deferred better? It's a matter of opinion, but I think if you can make money and have it be tax-free, that's the ultimate win. Roth IRA is the way to go for that. And the Roth IRA gets a lot of sizzle and a lot of attention because of that potential for tax-free growth. But you also have to be aware of the way you're going to be funding it, because we do have contribution limits with these. So we'll cover some different ways in which you can fund your Roth IRA and be able to grow it exponentially, not only through conversions, but also through partnering the account. Employer plans are for those people who are entrepreneurial. They don't have that traditional 9-to-5 job. They don't have that traditional 401k, 403b, whatever it may be. So we have 3 of these: the SEP IRA, simple IRA, and the solo 401k, or other words, the individual 401k. These accounts function just like the traditional IRA in that they grow tax deferred. These are pre-tax accounts. The biggest difference in what people like about these, especially if you're a business owner, is you can make much larger contributions than you can to a traditional. The SEP IRA, I can make a contribution of $58,000 a year to that. Simple IRA, $13,500. The solo 401k, guys, I'll be frank, this is its own animal. It's its own unique animal. This is the most powerful account, but it's also the most dangerous account by far. So you have to meet very specific criteria to even qualify for a solo 401k. Self-employed, no employees. And in that first year, you got to make a contribution from the profits of your business. So if you are self-employed and you have no employees and the solo 401k does intrigue you, you want to learn more, my information will be left at the end of this, and you can contact me and I'll get you in touch with one of our solo 401k experts to see if it really is the right account for you. Specialty plans, we call these special plans because they're special plans for special purposes, specific purposes. Health savings account, Coverdell education account. Health savings account, we call it the best of both worlds because you can get a tax deduction on your contribution and then turn around and use that money completely tax-free for qualified medical expenses. Qualified medical expenses can be anything like pharmaceuticals, eyeglasses, dental, contacts. Some surgeries are covered under that. And it's just kind of shifting your mindset of using after-tax dollars to pay for those everyday healthcare expenses. I have an HSA at Quest, 2 of them. I have one with my employer that Quest contributes to, that I use that to pay for my medical expenses. I also have a self-directed health savings account that I will partner with other accounts and do some short-term lending, things of that sort. Coverdell education savings account, this can be used for qualified education expenses from kindergarten to postgraduate school. Now, caveat is you can only fund the account until the child is 18 years old. That child has until age of 30 to utilize it. Qualified education expenses can be tuition, school supplies, room and board, uniforms if they go to a private school. But a big one, and especially in the pandemic age, and really anytime, but especially in pandemic with many people doing homeschooling still, is your Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi is one of the biggest expenses that you have. If you have a child who is doing a research project and they got to use the internet, guess what? You can pay for the internet completely tax-free as an education expense with the Coverdell education account. So it's not only about using these accounts to grow with investments, it's also an overall strategy of learning how to understand money a little bit better. And these everyday expenses, if you could use them with after-tax dollars versus pre-tax dollars, it's going to help you in the long run continue to stay ahead and ultimately keep more of your money. These accounts can be self-directed individually or partnered. Partnering is one of our favorite strategies at Quest Trust. So your IRA is just an entity. That's all it is. It's just an entity. It doesn't have a credit score, doesn't have income, doesn't have feelings, doesn't have friends. It's just an entity, guys. And it has its own name, Quest Trust Company, FBO, for the benefit of your first and last name, IRA, and the account number. But let's say I got a small IRA and I don't have enough to go purchase that property. I can partner with another person's IRA. I can also partner with just a money partner. I can partner with Sherman personally. My IRA could partner with Sherman. But keep in mind, this is an undivided interest. It doesn't mean, well, the top floor is mine and the bottom floor is Sherman's. It means we're splitting this thing down the middle 50-50 or 70-30, whatever those splits are. So we'll just have my IRA's name, but in the parentheses, as to an undivided interest, in this case of 50%, that percentage can be any of those. So again, partner or do it individually, either way works fine. And frankly, there are no limits to how many partners you can have in a deal. So all of these can be partnered. Again, here's your individual vesting. Here's the partner scenario. Very key thing to remember this is if I'm partnering, my expenses and my profit are split commensurate to my percentage of ownership, whether it's two IRAs or an IRA and an individual. If it's 50-50, we're splitting the profit 50-50. We're also splitting the expenses 50-50. Parallel transaction. So we have to discuss this. And again, some of you have a more sophisticated level of expertise with this. Some of you don't, but I'll blow right through this for those of you that do know. But it is important. Disqualified persons. The IRS lists certain people as disqualified from your IRA. These people cannot enter in a transaction or benefit personally from the IRA or any other qualified retirement plan. First person that's disqualified from the IRA is you. You are a disqualified person from your IRA. Conceptually, break it down like this. We have you, name, address, friends, wife, spouse, kids, job, credit score. Then we have Mr. IRA. Again, Mr. IRA is just an entity. Mr. or Mrs. IRA, just an entity, hollow shell. Disqualified persons can't enter into transactions with their own IRA. But if we look at this very simple, detailed list here, man, the IRS makes nothing more simple than this, guys. This is the list of disqualified persons. Pretty easy stuff, huh? No, this is more for me and the other IRA specialists to know this expert breakdown like this, but we break it down very simply. Who's disqualified from the IRA? You, your spouse, your lineal descendants, so parents, grandparents, lineal descendants, children, grandchildren, their spouses, companies those individuals own, control, manage, or are highly compensated by. Those disqualified persons are not allowed to engage in what are called prohibited transactions. They may not buy, sell, trade, loan, extend a service, or receive a direct or indirect benefit from the IRA. So if I own a house personally, guys, my IRA can't buy it from me and I can't sell it to the IRA. It's prohibited. If I own a property in my IRA, I can't be the one that goes, if it's a fix and flip or long-term rental, I can't be the one that goes and fixes it up. I got to have non-disqualified people do the renovations on that property. I can't extend my own service. I can extend that to the IRA because I am disqualified, as are those other disqualified people as well. I can't have my spouse go fix that. She's disqualified as well. So just know who you can and can't do business with. This is a huge part of the deal. As long as you don't self-deal in an IRA, for all intents and purposes, you should be just fine. Only two restrictions from investment, guys. You can't buy life insurance contracts. You can't buy collectibles. Collectibles are things that don't have a real hard appraised value. They're more sentimental in value. So that vintage wine collection, you can't buy it in your IRA. You might as well just go buy it yourself and drink it, enjoy it with the missus. So what you can invest in at Quest, again, we're real estate focused, guys. single family, foreclosures, commercial, condos, options, land, excuse me, tax liens, private placements, LLCs, limited partnerships, joint ventures, trusts. Promissory notes are the most popular thing that we have at Quest. Most of our clients like to invest in notes, whether it's buying the mortgage note itself or loaning money to a borrower. Whether it's secured or unsecured does not matter. We can do notes all day, guys. Excuse me. The steps, guys, very simple. Number one, you open the account at Quest. Two, you fund your account via contribution, rollover, transfer, however that funding method is. Again, self-directed, go locate your investment. You do the due diligence on the person in the deal. You agree you want to do it. You complete step 4, complete the direction of investment forms. Step 5, Quest will turn around and fund your investment in 24 to 48 hours. Very fast. That's our standard processing time, guys. We don't charge any expedited fee for 24 to 48 hours. Everything we do, account opening, transactions, transfers, funding the investment, which is the most important thing, is done in 24 to 48 hours tops, without exception. So let's look at a real estate case study here, guys, that we really start to understand how the IRA will work. I've got a case study for single family, notes, and a commercial deal. Excuse me. So these are real Quest clients, John and Jay. They purchased a office condo for $250,000 with their SEP IRAs. They each transfer $150,000 from their IRA brokerage accounts to Quest SEP IRAs to purchase the property. And you guys can see this. They make the offer to purchase the office condo. The Quest investing, we know there's a partner scenario here. So we've got 2 people that are purchasing this, 2 people on the deed. And they complete the direction of investment letter. And they send that buy direction letter, which has been signed. This is key, guys, read and approved. You got to sign off read and approved for Quest to fund your investment. We can't do anything until you give us that final say so. So we sign the contract. Quest signs on behalf of the IRA. The individual can't sign for their IRA because they're prohibited. They're disqualified. That's a prohibited transaction. You can't extend that service. So we send to the title company along with the earnest money deposit from each SEP IRA. At closing, John and Jay review. They approve all the closing documents, send it back to Quest for signatures. We sign, wire the funds to SEP IRA title company at closing. We see this right here, guys, 50-50 ownership. So again, key, they're going to split the profit 50-50. They're going to pay the expenses 50-50. And the vesting will reflect that. They hire the property management company to oversee the unit. Guys, most of our clients are still working. You know, they're not affluent enough to not be working. Then plus you can't manage your own property inside of the IRA already. So we want to be as passive as possible when we're talking about an IRA doing an investment, no matter what it is, whether that's residential, commercial, what have you. Very, very passive. So you find the right property management company, again, due diligence, do the due on them as well. They manage the property. Rents and expenses are handled by that property manager. They're sending the funds back to Quest. Again, not the individual. They're disqualified. If a renter sends a check to the individual, that individual can't then send it to the IRA. Got to stop it right there. Then the renter has to make the check out payable to the IRA. Positive cash flow of $850 a month, so $425 each month going back to the SEP IRAs. Property management company submits the net rent proceeds to Quest for the benefit of their SEP IRAs, and they can track all of this just like you can with your Bank of America account, Chase account, US Bank, whomever you bank with, Wells Fargo. You can track all of this via the Quest client portal. As soon as you get an account, we help you set up your own client portal so you can track your investments in real time, see the balances, see everything in your IRA in real time. So 2 years later, they have an offer for $395,000. So again, when they sell, they've got to sign read and approved because Quest is going to do that transaction. We are going to sell to the buyer. And on the day of the closing, they review all the documents. Quest signs the documents and returns them to title company, and they get the funds wired. Guys, this is the realized return on this. You look at the initial investment, $125K. The positive cash flow over the life of the deal, 26 months, 11,050. Gains from the sale, 62,500. The proceeds to each SEP IRA is almost $200,000. $200,000 in 26 months. That's a pretty damn good deal, guys. Here's the best part. It's a tax deferred gain of almost $74,000, a 59% return in 26 months. Beautiful thing about doing it in the IRA, guys, it's a tax exempt entity. I don't have to worry about 1031ing it into a new deal. I don't have to go scramble and find that next deal of equal or more value. It's all going back to the IRA. I can sit on that money, continue to do my due diligence, go find another deal, place that capital at the right deal at the right time when I determine that is, or I can transfer the funds over to Fidelity or Charles Schwab, Wells Fargo, put it in the market so it has a chance to earn something while I go find my new deal, go find my deal, transfer the money back from that custodian to Quest. Idea, guys, is to keep your money moving at all times. Don't let it sit idle. If you don't have a private investment in mind, get it over to that custodian that can put it to work for you in the market. You find that investment on the private side, liquidate, send it back to Quest, rinse and repeat, do that process again. So the key points, guys, they're not going to pay taxes on the gains. Reinvest on the profits on the next deal, free of taxes. The accounts involved, if the accounts involved were Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks, or again, in some cases, those Coverdales or health savings accounts, the gains are tax-free forever. So again, tax deferred is great, but if it's tax-free, man, it's even better. Nothing beats that. They were in total control of the process from start to end in terms of finding the deal, structuring the deal, because we don't give tax legal investment structuring advice. But we are the actual buyer and seller when it comes to purchasing and selling. Quest Trust Company for the benefit of, that's the very key thing. We're the ones buying it and selling it at the account holder's discretion, at their direction. They didn't take the money from their IRAs to buy the property and put it back in because that'd be a distribution and they would own it personally if they did that. So you can't take money out, buy it, put it in the IRA. It's paperwork. It's just documentation. Again, that direction of investment, and Quest goes and makes that purchase on behalf of the IRA. When you tell us it's time to sell, once you fill out the proper paperwork, read and approved, we sell on behalf of the client. All that profit goes back to the respective client's account. They can partner with other IRAs or non-IRA money. All expenses and proceeds must be in accordance to the percentage of ownership. And they have the checks deposited directly into their IRA instead of hiring a property management company. So commercial, guys, this is more the world I come from than single family. But again, I want you to kind of have the full scope of what this process looks like and what is possible for you when you're utilizing a self-directed IRA. So this was a client that we had up in Dallas. This was a letter he wrote to our president, Nathan Long, that he really wanted to give us kudos for the process in which we operated. So just because we don't give tax, legal, or investment advice doesn't mean we're not involved. Doesn't mean we don't have a vested interest. Our interest just isn't in whether or not it's a good or a bad deal, because we have to remain neutral as the custodian. Our interest is making sure that our clients are incredibly happy and satisfied, not only with the investment going well, but the process along the way that Quest Trust Company provided them, world-class, world-famous customer service along the way. Pick up the phone when things are going well, pick up the phone when things aren't going well, because that will happen sometimes. But this was just a nice shout out that they gave to us. And kind of the key things here, guys, this was a big deal. This was commercial. And you'll see this. These guys went all in on this deal. They gained over $1 million in 21 and a half months. And because it was done from the IRA, it saved them $344,000 in potential taxes. Save more of your money, guys. That's the only way not the only way, but it's a very big way in terms of getting ahead and staying ahead, is if you keep more of your money, whether it's in an IRA or creative structuring outside of an IRA. Keep your own money, keep more of it. So this portfolio grew from $1,050,000 to $2.45 million in 21 and a half months. And now they're ready to reinvest, man. When you make money in an investment, there's nothing better. You're ready to go again. Now you got momentum. You're looking for the next thing. But again, make sure that you've done your due diligence and that your timeline is your timeline, not anybody else's timeline. You're not in a race with anybody. And I would argue not even in a race with yourself. Just make sure that you do the due diligence, take your time, make sure that things fit what your criteria is and your risk threshold. So some of the specs of this deal, the purchase price was just under 2 million. The rehab cost 225. The loan amount. So the loan to value 6% of the purchase price. They took out almost a $1.2 million loan. You see the equity plus for the cost of rehab, almost $1 million that they're in. They sold this for 3.6 million. Net proceeds from the sale, 2.3 million. Net gain from the sale, because they had a loan on it, they got to pay that loan off. $1.4 million net gain. And the lender was North American Savings Bank. Guys, if your IRA doesn't have enough money to do a deal, the options that you have, number one, don't do the deal. Number two, you bring in a money partner, another person, another IRA, or you take on a loan. But the only type of loan that an IRA can accept is a non-recourse loan, a true non-recourse loan with non-recourse language. You can't extend your credit or your income to the IRA because the IRA doesn't have that. You can't extend that service to it. So there are banks that will loan specifically to IRAs non-recourse. But again, I impress upon you, other people's IRAs. Number one strategy people at Quest use for their IRA is to be the bank, to loan money to borrowers. So notes, guys, I just said this is the most popular thing at Quest that people do. This is the last case study here. So whether you have an IRA or not, you can benefit from IRAs. You don't have to be an IRA investor to benefit because, guys, again, what's the thing we're all looking for? Money, other people's money, OPM. OPI, guys, if there's any ladies here, we're not talking about the nail polish. We're talking about other people's IRAs. Other people's IRAs, guys. From the borrower's perspective, they're all about making money now. They need that money now. So why are notes so important? You're creating your own private financing source. You don't have to go to the bank. You got other people's IRAs, and there are literally trillions with a T of dollars inside of retirement accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, TSPs, trillions of dollars in these types of accounts. And as we touched on earlier, guys, every gathering, every meeting, if you've been to one meeting or two meetings or even 10 meetings, doesn't matter how many meetings, there's literally millions of dollars there, millions of dollars in the room. So just by learning how to network and opening up the possibilities of potentially borrowing from the IRA can solve maybe the number one issue that people have, which is getting access to funds. So in this case study, for a real estate note, Tom knows an investor who needs funds to complete a fix and flip project. Tom and the borrower sit down to discuss the terms of the note. ARV 127.5, $95,000 loan, 2 points at an interest rate of 12%. We're not just loaning the money to loan it, guys. We're loaning the money because we're going to make money. We're the bank in this scenario. And I get a lot of people sometimes like, man, I wouldn't loan money to a stranger. Well, they're not necessarily a stranger per se, because you've done due diligence on them. You've done due diligence on the deal. But I also think that every day you got to look at it. The bank doesn't know me. They don't know Kurt Power. They still loan me money for my house. Guess what? If I don't pay them, what's the bank going to do? They're going to foreclose on me. So if you're loaning money to borrowers, and again, I would stress that you have an attorney draft your note for you. Make sure the attorney has your best interest in mind as the lender. But if your borrower's not paying you, guys, you get to foreclose on them. You get to take that asset in which you lent the money on. Loan terms, typically, guys, we're looking at a minimum of 3 months because the investor who's loaning money, they want an opportunity to make some money on it. So they want at least 3 months. Typically, we see anything from 6 months to 12 months. I've seen in some cases 10 to 30-year notes at Quest. Interest-only payments every month. The buyer pays all costs and legal and Quest fees. So again, if you're drafting a note with a borrower, I would highly encourage you to have legal counsel draft that note so they have your best interest in mind. What I've seen at Quest is when people have promissory notes, the lender is well within their means and their rights to ask the borrower to pay the fees along the way, the transactional fees, the annual administration fees. Very simply, because this person couldn't do the deal if they didn't have my money, the perspective is at least you can pay my fees along the way as well. Build that into the deal. Have it all set in stone before you begin. And then hopefully it's a great investment. You sit back and watch the money multiply. You cannot loan IRA money to yourself or another disqualified person. That is a big prohibited transaction. If you do that, you're jeopardizing. I mentioned prohibited transactions a lot, guys, because the risk is you lose your entire retirement. The IRS doesn't audit you a year from now, 2 years from now, in many cases. We've seen audits done as many as 20 years down the road from the time somebody did a prohibited transaction. Their IRA ceases to exist on the first day of the year in which that transaction took place. And they have to pay taxes and penalties for every single year that that prohibited transaction took place. Most often, those taxes and penalties are far greater than the client's total account value. So just know that you can't do these things with certain people. And you and the borrower are free to set your own terms. You're in control. You're the lender. You've got the access to the funds. You've got what the borrower needs. If you're the borrower, if you're a new borrower, you may have to give a little bit more. But if you're a very seasoned, sophisticated investor and you're borrowing money, I always say the lender's got the benefit of doing it. Sometimes you might have to give into the borrower. Like if Sherman wanted to borrow money from me, I like, trust, and respect Sherman. I think he's probably going to do really well. The only thing I want to ask him is, hey, do you mind if I have my attorney review the note? And he'll probably say, sure. Simple enough, guys. So if somebody of his expertise, maybe give a little bit to get the deal done. But trust me when I tell you, they're not going to have a problem if you have counsel. Look out for your best interest as well. Everybody wants to win on this. It should be a win-win for everybody. IRAs can loan money unsecured or secured by assets other than real estate, such as equipment, mobile homes. Guys, we've seen loans secured by some of the craziest things, and some of the stuff you wouldn't believe if I told you I've seen secure these assets. So let's leave it at that for now. So if you have a small account, guys, talk about partnering the IRAs together. It's better to partner small amounts of money and grow it than sit on the sidelines. Take action, get in the game, whether that's with your own money or IRA money. Utilize multiple buckets of money. You should have multiple buckets, guys. Whether anybody likes a 401k or not, it's free money from the employer. Take it. Have a retirement bucket of money, have your 401k bucket of money, your HSA bucket, have your personal funds, multiple buckets doing multiple things that benefit you now and later. Partnering allows you to have a bigger amount of money to fund the deal. Now, if you've got a small IRA, this helps you grow that small IRA. And yes, you're going to be riding the coattails of the bigger account. But when I've got a Roth IRA or traditional IRA and I can only make a contribution of $6,000 a year, it's going to take a long time before I build up enough equity in that IRA to go do a deal. So I better get a small percentage, get something in the deal, 5%, 7%, 10%, whatever that is. Get some earnings coming back to that account. Not only are you learning the IRA process from start to finish, but you're building above and beyond what you could do with just making contributions. So don't be afraid to partner with people smarter than you, better than you, that are where you want to be. Sit underneath that learning tree, all the while watch your IRA grow. And you can grow multiple IRAs simultaneously with one investment. Partner multiple of your IRAs in one deal. Doesn't matter. That's okay. So Sherman alluded to me in Baltimore that we have a lot of people in this group that have TSPs. And one of my coworkers is former military as well. So he's very familiar with this process. So anytime you guys have questions, you can contact me and I'll get you in touch with Derek Long. Derek is our President Nathan Long's son, excuse me, and our CEO Quincy Long's nephew. So he's grown up in this world with the IRAs, but he also has firsthand experience of how to roll over a TSP. When I was talking to him about this, he said, if you still have your CAC card, moving the TSP is easier. So anytime we want to access funds from our qualified retirement plan, 99.9% of the time, we've got to have what's called separation of service. I quit, I was fired, I left, I did whatever it is, I no longer am there. Whether I work at Quest or I'm in the military, I've got to have separation of service to have access to that retirement fund. what he told me with this CAT card, why it helps it move it faster, is if you wait until you have fully separated, that process can be very, very lengthy. With your CAT card, where you put it into the keyboard at your job, every government agency has that. You slide that in, you have access to your funds right there, your whole retirement account. You can initiate the rollover while you're going through that separation of service. You don't have to wait. You don't have to wait. Now, if you don't have a CAT card, sorry, then we have to go the other route. You have to have that separation of service, full separation of service. We set up the account at Quest, pre-tax IRA, and then begin the rollover process. The average time on rollovers from a TSP, guys, is 30 days. You know, the government, they typically don't work very fast on anything unless they're trying to slide some new legislation in, which I'm going to touch on here in a minute as well. But the forms needed, TSP 90 for most people, and something the TSP 60 if you're lower enlisted or if you are dishonorably discharged. So very, very important information here. If you have a TSP, key takeaways, guys, if you have a CAT card, utilize that. Start the process while you're having that separation from the military. The forms needed, again, TSP 90 for most, TSP 60 for lower enlisted. Average time to do the rollover, 30 days. Start setting up the IRA now to make the process easier. That kickstarts the entire process of having the IRA. I'm going to wind down, guys. So I'm sure many of you are aware of the proposed legislation that's been coming through for the spending bill. And I don't want to get this political because I follow politics. I'm kind of a political junkie myself. But the new spending bill has some severe ramifications, not just for IRAs, but for people who raise money for a living. It affects everybody. It doesn't just affect IRAs. We're talking about retirement accounts across the board, your 401k, your 403b, your TSP, 457, TRS, whatever it is, it's under attack right now. So the legislation bills have not passed, but these are the key ones, and you can write these down and do the research and look through these. I would encourage you to do this, because the more knowledge you have, the more effective you can be when you contact your local representatives and say, we oppose this. 138301, no more can contributions be made to any account, IRA, 401k, with the value of greater than $10 million. That doesn't affect everybody. That affects a certain percentage of people. 138302, required minimum distributions. Guys, when you turn 72 years of age and you've got a traditional or pre-tax retirement account, starting April 1st, the year after you turn 72, the government requires you to take a minimum amount out every year. The way they look at it is, you've got this big bucket of money right here that has not been, no taxes have been paid yet. So now that you're in retirement, every year you're required to take a minimum amount out. When you take a distribution from your pre-tax account, that is when you get hit with the taxes. Taxes, ordinary income added to your modified adjusted gross income. RMDs do not apply to Roth IRAs. There are no such thing. But if this piece of the legislation, 138302, passes, even Roth IRAs would have required minimum distributions if the account's over $10 million. Again, $10 million, that doesn't affect everybody. Well, here's where it starts to affect people at a much more grassroots level, if you will. 138311. If you're a high income earner, you may have been told that you cannot have a Roth IRA. You make too much. You can't make a direct contribution to a Roth IRA. That piece of it is true. However, there is a legal way that you can still have a Roth IRA, even if you are a high income earner. It's called a backdoor Roth conversion, where simply you make a non-deductible contribution to a traditional or any other pre-tax IRA, and you convert those funds to a Roth. If 138311 passes, the backdoor Roth conversion is gone. This is the one that impacts me the most, coming from the syndication world. 138312. If it passes, syndications as it relates to IRAs are gone. No private placements can be held inside of an IRA. So if you like apartments, if you like multifamily, if you like self-storage, if you like funds, if you like REITs, and they're not publicly traded, the government is proposing that your IRA cannot hold that. I was actually just reading an article on Money Watch, and I cannot remember the person's name. He's an economist that said that, quite frankly, in his opinion, private placements have no place in IRAs, to which I have some strong opinions about that, because last I checked, man, it's America, and we should have some choice about where our money goes. And if we're an expert or we like certain asset classes, we should be able to invest in those. So take this seriously, guys. I'm an IRA specialist. So yeah, I get a little fired up about some of this legislation, but it has far reaching impacts, not just to an IRA account holder, but syndications as we know it they're going to take a huge hit. And if you already have this in there, the proposition is by December 31st of 2022, you have to take those distributions out. Translation, the government wants to tax money on it. If you've ever done a syndication and raised $5, $6, $7, $8, $9 million or more, and you've got IRA money in there and that person has to distribute that, what do you think that does to the deal? It can cripple it. It can cripple the other investors that are in there. It can dilute the other investors that are in there. So take this thing seriously, guys. These are the big ones that you want to pay attention to. 138301, 138302, 138311, 138312. And lastly, guys, 138314. Checkbook control is gone. Investing in an LLC or a trust is gone. Single purpose LLCs where your IRA is the solo investor, gone. Solo 401k, gone. IRA owned entity like an LLC, gone. It's imposing a ton of restrictions on what you can and cannot do with an IRA. So what to do? Make some noise, guys. There's enough divisive issues in the country and in the world right now. Pandemic, politics, war, home life sometimes can be stressful, friends, family. So many things pull us apart. Social media, I can go on and on. My hope is that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, you understand this affects everybody and we make noise collectively together. This is something I hope rallies us together. Write your congressmen and women. Let your voice be heard. If you have a passion about this and it means something to you, now is not the time to sit on the sidelines. Now is the time to act and use your voice. And here's the link to the House of Representatives. Find your representative in your area and let them know your opinion. Lastly, guys, get a Roth IRA before it's too late. Roth IRAs are under siege. Definitely are under siege. And the Roth IRA is potentially a very, very powerful account. The fact that it goes tax-free. Get a Roth IRA now by December 31st. If you don't have a Roth IRA, you're probably not going to have one. You're a high income earner. Roth conversions can't do it anymore. Can't make the backdoor Roth conversion. Get a Roth IRA, put something in it, get the 5-year clock started, start seasoning that now. Just so happens we're waiving the account opening fees on all Roth IRAs, guys. Now, Roth Rush is our promo code, but I'm changing this. We're going to call this Ragland Rush for Sherman. Anybody who uses the promo code Ragland Rush and gets a Roth IRA, we're going to waive your account opening fee for the next 72 hours. So contact me. Here's my email, guys, kurt.power@questtrust.com. Get in touch with me, guys. And I always say, don't open an IRA just because there's no account opening fee. I mean, have a plan for it. I am more than happy to do consultations with any of you that are on this call anytime. I mean, I'm not a commission salesperson. I'm on the sales team, but Quest pays me very well to give away free education. So I make myself very available and know that you're in good hands. And when I'm dealing with somebody that Sherman sends me, you get treated with the utmost respect as well. So contact me, guys, kurt.power@questtrust.com. Give me a call, 281-492-3434. I'll leave that in the chat box. But Sherman, that's all I got, man.
Oops, that's great. So does anybody have any questions of Kurt? I know he threw a lot of stuff at you. While you guys are thinking about what questions you want to ask, Let me give you guys another case study. Would that be all right? Anybody want another case study to talk about how to use this? All right. So first of all, I strongly believe in self-directed IRAs. Self-directed IRAs made me a multimillionaire. You guys understand that? Everybody runs around talking about OPM, other people's money, other people's money. Where do most people keep their money? In the mattress? In the passbook savings account? In a checking account? Retirement account. How many people say retirement account? If you are seriously going to leverage other people's money, you better learn how to get money out of their retirement account in a fashion that is 100% legal, 100% ethical, and will allow you to do the kinds of things that both you and that investor want to do. And that's going to happen through their retirement account. This, my friends, is the keys to the kingdom. Y'all understand hard money lenders come and go, big money center banks come and go. They're like a pendulum swinging back and forth. There's always money or there's never money. But one thing's for sure, no hard money lender, no Bank of America, no credit union is ever going to give you 100% of the money that you need to do a deal. You will always have some kind of a gap. When times are great, like they are right now, they'll give you 80% financing, but you'll still have a 20% gap. And when times are scarce and everybody's running for the hills, like 2010, they'll give you 10% financing and want to have 100% of the collateral, which will leave you with a 90% gap. How do you close the gap? How do you close the gap? Say it with me. Other people's money. Where is other people's money? In their IRA. If you are serious about being a real estate investor and plan on doing anything other than hustling, bird dog fees, and wholesale fees, this is the most important class. This is the most important session you've ever come to in your life. Because once you understand how to leverage other people's money, you are home free as a real estate investor. I hope you guys understand that. And the keys to unlocking other people's money is self-directed IRAs. And having a relationship with a company like Quest, having phone number of a guy like Kurt or email of a guy like Kurt who can walk you through that process and help you. Number one, and Kurt said it best, first step, set up your own IRA. Understand how the process works. How in the world are you going to get your fraternity brothers and sorority sisters and fellow alumni and folks from the PTA to come invest in your real estate deal, the freaking deal of a century? And they say, well, okay, how do I do this? You say, oh, it's really easy. You basically just take money from your from your IRA and set up something called self-directed IRA. And then once you do that, Kurt will fund your deal in 24 hours. So that sounds great, man. And what kind of return are you going to give me on this deal? 10%, 10%. Gosh, my bank's not even giving me 1%. You're going to give me 10% on a deal? That sounds great, man. How do I do it? And you know what comes out of your mouth next? I don't know, because I've never done it myself. And what just happened to your credibility? Baboosh. The time to take advantage of this knowledge is before you need it. The time to set up a self-directed IRA is before you attempt to get somebody else to do it. And going through and doing at least one for yourself will start the process of you becoming an expert. You want to become a real expert? Set one up for you, your wife, your husband, your kids, the dog. Hey, Kurt, can a dog have an IRA? Okay.
If he has earned income, sure.
As long as the dog earned income.
If he's a model, yeah.
As long as Fifi is in all of your all your promo videos, and you're paying him $10,000, what, $10,000 a year or something like that. And Fifi gets a W-2 or a 1099, they can have a self-directed IRA. But here's my point. You should seriously think about setting up a self-directed IRA now. For all the reasons that Kurt talked about, the possibility that some of the changes in the legislation, and even if some of those things survive or don't survive, the bottom line is, if you have it it's harder for them to take it away from you than it is for them to slam the door in your face and say, oops, too late. You should have done it in 2021 because 2022, 2023, we don't allow you to do that no more. So the time to act on this is now. Now, let me give you a little case study. Kurt gave you guys some great case studies. Let me give you one more that hits a little closer to home. Let me share my screen. How many of you know these three people? Raise your hands if you know who these people are. All right, Jesse Marks, Robert Eugene, and Marcia McPhee. Y'all know them? And you guys know that Marcia and Robert Eugene teamed up as a part of our partners program. I think they were team number 2 or team number 5, I can't remember. And after the apprentice part of the program was over, they decided to keep working together. And you guys know that they teamed up with Howard Johnson, and they told us that they made 110 grand on one deal, split it three ways. 110 grand goes pretty far even when you split it 3 ways. You guys understand that? Everybody know that story? Yes? Give me a thumbs up if you know that story and you've heard that story. You know what it's all about, right? You saw the video where they talked about the deal over on Q Street? Yeah? I think they closed a week or 2 ago. Now, let me tell you the story behind the story. Anybody here want to hear the story behind the story? Okay. So Marcia comes to Real Investors and she says, look, guys, I've just been through a really, really, really tough patch, financially speaking. And I don't think she would mind me telling this to you guys. And she said, I got the money to go through the programs, but here's the deal. I don't know if I can scrape together the money to pay the earnest money deposit and the real estate agent fee. Y'all know if you go through the 21-day course, you got to have that EMD because we're talking about finding deals in the MLS. Y'all know that, right? Give me a thumbs up if you understand where I am. I don't want to lose anybody because if I lose you and I confuse you, you know what's going to happen? Your brain's going to shut down. You're going to go, So make sure you're right there with me. So Marcia needed the $1,000 earnest money deposit and the $497, whatever the fee is, to engage the real investor agent. You guys with me on that? And she says, is it any way possible that somebody could help me out with that? And I said, sure, Marcia, my son can help you out with that. Because my son is in the business of making micro loans. And she says, well, how does a micro loan work? I said, it's real simple. He will talk to you and you guys work out your own terms, but basically he will loan you the $1,000 you need plus the $500 you need, and you guys take it from there. So last week, when Marcia closed her deal, she refunded David $1,000 that he put up for her to be able to engage Jesse as her agent. In addition to the $1,000, she also reimbursed him the $500 for the fee that he paid on her behalf. Everybody see how that works? And in addition to the $1,500, which is what he put up on her behalf, she also wrote him a check for $2,000, which is what their agreement was. When she got a deal, Dave would get back his $1,000 plus $2,000 more. From the length of time that Marcia had the money from David in this micro loan to the amount of time that he was reimbursed was exactly 4 months. Would anybody like to run the financial calculator on that? If you put up 1,000 and you get back 2,000 in addition to your 1,000, what kind of a rate of return is that? Somebody please tell me. Let me ask it this way. Is it more than you made in the stock market in the last 4 months? Is it more than you made in your Bitcoin account in the last 4 months? Is it more than you made on your TSP in the last 4 months? What if you had done that in your self-directed IRA? opened up a self-directed IRA, funded it to the tune of $1,000 or $1,500. And by the way, you can move money out of your TSP. You can move money out of your existing IRA without any penalty, without any consequence. If you do it the correct way, reach out to Kurt, let him and his team show you how to do it. But let's say that you had a self-directed IRA that had $1,500 in it, and you say to the folks at Real Investors, I want to make micro loans to other investors through my self-directed IRA. And you provide $1,500, and 4 months later, you're getting $3,500. Was that a good quarter? Was that a good 4 months for you? Heck yeah. Now, you want to know the absolute best part of it? And this is what made the difference in terms of David wanting to do this. Who does David actually give the money to? Marcia? Robert Eugene? Or Real Investors? It's earnest money deposit money. Y'all know what earnest money deposit money is, right? The $1,000 is earnest money deposit money. He writes the check payable to Real Investors Real Estate Services escrow. What happens to that money? What happens to earnest money deposit money? It goes into a bank account and it doesn't come out until either the deal closes or a certain amount of time passes, there is no deal. In other words, how much risk did David take by putting up the earnest money deposit for Marcia? And that's exactly right, Larry, 0. In this example, I'm not saying it always works out that way, but in this example, there was 0 downside risk. And his deal with Marcia was he would loan her the money for 6 months, and she had to pay a $100 fee up front and pay for the paperwork. Now, if you put up $1,000 and you make back $100, what does that look like? Isn't that a 10% rate of return? But if she had gone another 6 months, you'd have to pay another $100. Isn't that a 20% rate of return? So if she didn't get a deal, he would make 20%. The $500 he put up for had to be reimbursed. There was no interest or no fee on that. But the $1,000 earnest money deposit, she had to pay him $100 up front to get access to that $1,000. That's a 10% rate of return if it went a year, but it didn't go a year, it went 6 months. And if she'd gone an extra 6 months, it would have been another $100. That's a 20% rate of return on $1,000. But she did get a deal. And as a result, she didn't pay him $200, she paid him $2,000. This is what I mean by micro loans. I know Kurt put up some case studies. I know he put up some big numbers, talking about hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. But you guys understand that if you put up $1,500 in a self-directed IRA and made micro loans and had 2 or 3 people like Marcia borrow and pay you and not get a deal, you're making 20%. And when they do get a deal, you're making 2,000%. Did anybody here just have an aha moment? Because it felt like the room just got a whole lot brighter. You can open up a self-directed IRA and tell Kurt and his team to put it in the stock market because you think you don't have enough to do a deal. Or you can make micro loans where the money doesn't go to the recipient, the money goes into the escrow account on their behalf so that they can write up offers and say, hey, I've got $1,000 earnest money deposit on file. Now you have to, if you do this, now here's the deal. It's not Marcia's IRA that's doing this. It's your IRA that's doing it. Therefore, you don't have any conflicts whatsoever. You're making these loans on behalf of somebody else. for somebody else's benefit, not your personal benefit. If a deal doesn't materialize, in this example, you're making 20% return all day long. What else are you invested in your retirement account that's consistently paying 20% with literally zero risk? I mean, what's the? It's going into an earn. It's like she never touched the money. It went straight into the escrow account. She never touched it, not once. Had she not gotten a deal, the $200 would have been paid into your self-directed IRA, and the money gets returned, which means you can then turn around and loan it to somebody else. But she did get a deal. Y'all saw she got a deal. Do you think she really cared that she paid David back his 1,000 plus 2,000 more? She made freaking 30% of 110,000. Do you think she really cared? But by making that micro loan, she could get into the game when without the $1,000 earnest money deposit, she would have been stuck on the side of the road. That, Kurt, is what I call social investing. Helping out people who want to get into the real estate investing game by making micro loans. Doesn't get any better than that. What do you think, Kurt?
I think it's a pretty damn compelling case, man.
So I don't want anybody coming out of this session with Kurt thinking, oh, gee, I don't have $100,000. I don't have $10 million. If you do, great. If you got 100, great. If you got 50, great. If you got 10, great. And by the way, again, you can move it from another retirement account. But if all you got is $1,000, I mean, for crying out loud, most of you guys can go out and get a cash advance, put that on a credit card. And that's after tax money. That's Roth IRA money. Which means every penny that you make using this strategy is tax-free if you set it up the right way in the first place. If you set it up wrong in the first place, you may wind up turning 1,000 into 100,000 and have the IRA wipe it all out because you did it the wrong way. This is why we need folks like Quest. This is why we need folks like Kurt to make sure we do this thing correctly. But the power to make money, even with small amounts of money, is all around us. It's all around us. You guys already saw an example I gave you. Let me just give you one more quick example, then I get off of this. But you guys saw in the example that I gave you in the first lesson, in the first session, how if we focus on buying houses in Prince George's County that are just basically 3-2s, and I went through the math, so I'm not going to go through the math today, but we saw that, hey, we buy a house for $365,000 and throws up $1,000 a month positive cash flow, and we get a private investor to put up $24,000. In that scenario, we're able to pay them $36,000 3 years later. That's a 50% rate of return. That's a 17% per annum rate of return. In other words, if I take 50% and divide it by 3 years, the 3 years it takes, 1, 2, 3 to make it happen, and I come up with 16.66666. I just rounded up to the whole number. That's 17% rate of return. You guys saw me map this out for you in the prior session. Like, how hard do you have to work when you have the ability to offer investors 17% rates of return? You know what your single biggest problem is going to be if you actually follow this BRRRR strategy? By the way, this is a BRRRR strategy. This is exactly what people talk about when they talk about buy, rent, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. I'm the first person who ever talked about a BRRRR strategy almost 20 years ago. And I've been doing BRRRR strategies in Prince George's County. Now, I don't really use the phrase BRRRR. It was give credit where credit's due. It was Bigger Pockets that started popularizing that phrase. But I've been talking about BRRRR, and I've been talking about BRRRR on Bigger Pockets for the past 7-8 years, or however long I've been a contributing author to them. But the bottom line is you guys know how to do this right here in your own backyard. What's the missing link? What's the key to making this work? Having private investors. Well, how many private investors do you need if you're offering them a 17% rate of return? It's really kind of a function of how many houses do you want to do? 3 this year, 4 this year, 5 this year. I did 5 houses last year, decided to sell 2 and keep 3 of them. They were BRRRR strategies. This strategy. So what's the hardest part of making this happen? showing somebody how to take $24,000 in their retirement account, 401k, TSP, Roth, whatever, and set up a self-directed IRA, working with Kurt and his team, and moving that money into their self-directed IRA so they can then fill out the appropriate paperwork, which he will show you how to do, so that 24 hours later, that $24,000 is showing up at the title company for the settlement so you can close that deal. Are you guys understanding how important it is to have Kurt Power in your life? Give me a thumbs up if you understand how important it is to have him and his team available to you when you are ready to actually pull the trigger on this strategy. Are you guys getting this? Is anybody getting this? Folks, this strategy is what made me a multimillionaire of the past 20 years. Quest wasn't around when I started doing this. I started off with another self-directed IRA company. Today, there's about a dozen quote unquote self-directed IRA companies, but they are not created equal. All you got to do is go on to Yelp and see the ratings. You know who's got the #1 ratings for customer service? Quest. You know who has the worst rating for customer service? The guys I started off with. Because the founder of the company retired and turned it over to his kids. And you know what happens when so many instances where the founder turns it over to the kids? The kids screw it up. Enough said. But you need to have, in my humble opinion, somebody like a Kurt, somebody like a Quest, to help you first understand how this works. Second, actually do it, and do it with smaller sums of money or larger sums of money. And then third, take great care of your customers, your partners, your private investors, so that they don't become the problem that causes you to lose a deal. Having the wrong self-directed IRA company, the wrong custodian, the wrong trust company working with you is the difference between closing a deal and everybody's happy, or a deal getting totally screwed up because the self-directed IRA company couldn't get the hell out of the way. You're mad, your private investors are mad, the seller of the property's mad, everybody's mad, and everybody wants to sue each other because the deal blew up at the last minute. Why? Because the money was supposed to be there, and some $8 an hour clerk didn't tell somebody that the paperwork was filled out incorrectly, and therefore the money's not going to arrive for another 30 days. And then your deal falls apart because you don't know what to do to fix it. Don't be that person. Kurt put his information in the chat box. Grab his information, reach out to him, set up an IRA account with these guys today. Move a minimal amount of money, $2,000 today. And then let them work with you to get a better understanding as to how it works, what the portal looks like, what the relationship looks like. Start by making some of these micro loans if you want to the folks here at Real Investors. Do what Dave did and get those 2,000% rates of return or 20% rates of return, and learn this process by actually doing it. And then be prepared to hand your customers, your clients, your investors over to these guys and let them do the heavy lifting. Got it? So anyway, I just want to share that quick case study with you guys, so that Kurt knows what it is that we're working towards. What we're building towards is you guys being able to implement the strategy I gave you in our prior session. Being able to buy houses with none of your own money and get paid every time you do it. Last session, we talked about the right kind of houses in the right kind of neighborhoods. Y'all seem to be nodding your heads in agreement when we finished up last session. Today, we talked about the importance of having a self-directed IRA custodian to help you with the private investor piece. And when we get together next time, we'll talk about the right kind of lenders who can make you like a hard money loan kind of thing and then turn around and refinance it and turn it into an investor loan for 30 years. So you can pay back that private investor and give them that 17% rate of return. But in order for you to actually make money doing the strategy, you've got to follow through. So don't let this webinar end and you didn't capture Kurt's information that he's already put in the chat box. When this session is over, the chat box goes away. So I certainly hope that you grab his name. I certainly hope that you grabbed his contact info. He put it in there for you. I'll copy and paste it and put it in there for you too. But make sure you do not leave this session today without having his information and reaching out to him and getting that account set up. Get one for yourself, then get another for your spouse, get one for each of your kids, and start using it in the most basic sort of way. Got it? By the way, I would cut and paste it. I wouldn't, somebody said it did a screenshot, because if you mistype, like it's Kurt.power@Quest Trust, 2 T's. And you'd be all frustrated talking about, I sent an email to Kurt, he never returned my email. Why? Because you mistyped it. Instead of putting Kurt.power, you put Kurt Power. Instead of putting Quest Trust with 2 T's, you put Quest Trust with 1 T. And then you'd be all mad because you didn't even get a bounce back for like 7, 8, 9, 30 days. Cut and paste, people. Don't make this harder than it is, for crying out loud. Cut, paste, email. Set up a little contact record in your computer right now and reach back out to the man and leverage all the things that Quest has to help you first get set up and then start setting up your private investors, your partners. All right, Kurt, you got anything else that we need to know?
I think that's good for now, man. I look forward to working with you guys. Sherman, it's been a pleasure. I'm very, very happy that we get to work together again. It's been too long.
Agreed.
And guys, I tell you again, like, trust, and respect. I like, trust, and respect Sherman Ragland more than almost anybody I've met in this industry. I think very highly of him. I think very highly of this group. And take action. I mean, you'll hear that at every single real estate event you go to. It's all about action, guys. Whatever goal you have, write it down. That's the commitment. You wrote it down. You put it on paper. I will give credit to the other company without mentioning any names. And quite frankly, it doesn't make sense to mention names, so they changed their name a couple of times now.
Yeah. When I first heard about this concept of self-directed IRAs, the founder of that other company actually spent almost 2 hours. I went to a seminar down in Atlanta, and he was speaking from the stage, and then he had a booth, and we spent almost 2 hours together of him walking me through how the whole process works. And what was really fascinating was he didn't mean to set up a self-directed IRA company. He just wanted to do a deal down in Atlanta where he was from. He wanted to buy a warehouse. And he noted that all of his friends had money, but the only place they had money was in their retirement accounts. So he was the one that really sort of pushed and pushed and pushed to find out, okay, how do I do this? Because he realized what a lot of people don't realize. Like you guys, how many people here have driven through K Street or the Wharf or Pratt Street in Baltimore? Anybody ever drive through any of those streets? Drive down near the Wharf? Okay, you guys see those big buildings, right? On K Street, those big buildings on Pratt Street, those big buildings in the Wharf, right? Who owns those buildings? Who paid for those buildings? Who put up the money for those buildings? Anybody know? If you do know, put it in the chat box. Who put up the money to build those buildings on K Street in Washington, D.C.? Who put up the money to build those buildings on the Wharf, where all the hot spots are? Who put up the money for the buildings on Pratt Street? Somebody said private investors. No. You know who put up the money for those Class A glitzy towers? Pension funds. Do y'all know what a pension fund is? It ain't nothing but a highfalutin retirement account. Teachers unions and firefighters unions. Like why do people become cops and teachers and firefighters and college professors? A, because they love what they do, and B, they know that they're not going to get rich doing it, but when it comes time to retire, they're going to have a pension, a retirement account. So How does that work? The municipality, the college, the school district pays them their salary and puts money aside in their pension. Okay, well, what do we do with this big bag of money that represents the firefighters' pension fund, the cops' pension fund, the teachers' pension fund? We park it in real estate. Do you guys understand that pretty much 100% of the office buildings on K Street in Washington, D.C. is the result of pension funds financing those deals? This is what Robert Kiyosaki talks about when he talks about investments of the rich. Cops don't have money sitting in their bank account. If they do, they're under scrutiny. Internal Affairs is asking, where'd you get that? They're not driving around in Beamers and Mercedes. But you know what happens when a police officer retires? They're set. Their money's in their pension fund. Their money's in their retirement account. But that money doesn't just sit in a bank account. It gets invested where it can earn rates of return, respectable rates of return, like downtown K Street, Washington, D.C. office buildings, like on the waterfront downtown office buildings in Baltimore and Pittsburgh and New York and every major city in the country. That money that built those office buildings is coming from pension funds because retirement accounts love real estate. And all we are doing as real estate entrepreneurs is tapping something that's been going on for hundreds of years at a smaller scale, at a smaller level. And we are empowering our friends and family to get into the real estate game, just like Oliver Carr and the Teachers Fund of America did when they built 901 K Street or International Square or all those fancy office buildings in downtown Washington, D.C. We're playing the same game, albeit on a smaller level. This is what Robert Kiyosaki talks about in Rich Dad, Poor Dad as investments for the rich. So this other guy who explained to me how self-directed IRAs work, that was his big aha moment. He was like, well, wait a minute. How do the big boys do it? It's like, oh yeah, they get money from pension funds. Well, why can't I get money from my friends and family from their retirement accounts? And he was the one who pressed and pressed and pressed and finally found a little loophole that some ultra wealthy people were doing self-directed IRAs, and he set up a company to do the same thing for the rest of us. He was like Henry Ford. He democratized the use of retirement funds at a local level to go do smaller scale deals. That's how this whole business, quite frankly, really came about. And now you have other companies who bring more sophisticated technology and more sophisticated ways into the game, and we're the beneficiary of it. Because now we can go out and we can do private investor presentations when people say, I love this idea of getting a 17% rate of return or a 10% rate of return, or I love this idea of going in and buying the block. Y'all ever heard that expression, buy the block? So many folks of color are being gentrified out of their own neighborhoods. Chocolate City ain't Chocolate City no more. Y'all know that? But for those of my friends who are in Ward 8, there's hope. You can talk to your friends and family about, hey, why don't we buy some of this instead of just completely selling out and leaving the neighborhood? We don't all have to move to Ward 9. Y'all know what Ward 9 is. That's an inside joke. Prince George's County, Ward 9 of DC, right? Or you could say, you know what, if we're all going to Ward 9, let's make sure we own some of it. And you can create your own fund that's all about empowerment. It's all about, hey, we need, like, how many times you get together with your friends and say, look, you know, we're losing control. Everybody's moving out. We need to own some of this. Well, why not own your little piece of heaven? And get your friends and family to come along with you, your coworkers, your fraternity brothers, your sorority sisters, your fellow alumni, your fellow members of the PTA. There's so many different affinity groups that you guys belong to. I was talking to one of our members who's a firefighter. Another one of our members, Sean Scarlatta. Some of you guys may remember Sean. He has been a member for a number of years, but Sean raised $2 million from cops. Sean was an undercover cop. He came to me one time, we were having one of our mastermind meetings, And he was moaning and groaning. I said, well, what's wrong, Sean? He says, all my deals are just falling apart. The contractors are ripping me off left and right. I'm like, man, you sound miserable. You make me want to slice my throat. Is anything going well? He said, well, I raised $1 million last week. I'm like, whoa, back it up, bro. What do you mean you raised $1 million? He said, well, you remember how you talked to us about doing private investor presentations? You remember how you gave us a private investor slide? Do you remember talking about self-directed IRAs? I said, yeah. He said, well, I gave 2 presentations. And then the first one, I raised $500,000. The second one, I raised another $500,000. I'm like, tell me how you did that. He says, well, you know, I'm a cop. You know, my partners are cops. I said, yeah. He says, well, I never told you this, but my father-in-law is a cop. My dad's a cop. Everybody I know are cops. And half of them are retired. So we decided to give our first private investor presentation at the FOP hall. You know what the FOP hall is? Where the cops hang out, Fraternal Order of Police. And so his father-in-law invited some other folks. And at that presentation, a number of these police officers, many of whom were retired, were kind of like, you know what, bro, we need to help out these kids. They know what they're talking about. They know what they're doing. They've done a couple of real estate deals. We need to help out this next generation. So they literally passed the hat and raised $500,000 amongst, I think it was like 15 or 20 cops in the room, self-directed IRAs. They took the money from the pension fund, did it the right way, and put it into self-directed IRA. Turns out one of the guys in the room was visiting from New Jersey. And they got something unique and interesting in New Jersey. In New Jersey, they have something called townships. And a township is like a little mini municipality. It's like a little mini city. But each one of these townships has cops. And every one of these townships has a pension fund for their cops. So he said to Sean, he said, hey, would you object to taking money from cops in New Jersey? He said, absolutely not. So the next week, he gave the same presentation to a bunch of the guys who ran the pension fund for this municipal township. I think it was up near Princeton. And they gave him $500,000. Sean went out, bought an apartment building. I think it was in Kansas City. It's where Kurt used to hang out. Bought an apartment building in Kansas City, fixed it up, and flipped it 2 or 3 years later and doubled their money and paid back those pension funds. And then took the rest that they had and bought up a bunch of real estate locally. You guys understand, you're literally like one private investor presentation away from doing the biggest deal of your life. Provided you understand, once somebody says, yes, I'm interested, how to move them down that path from moving money from one place into another place so then it can be moved into your deal. And some people will do it because of the rates of return that you can offer. We talked in our last session about 17% rates of return, although I wouldn't necessarily recommend that you offer that because you don't have to in this environment. There's a whole lot of people who'd be happy with a 5-6% rate of return because they ain't getting nothing from the banks. And you're way more secure once you know what you're doing than Bitcoin or the stock market. But you know what? There are people who will invest in your deal just because it's your deal. Just because you want to buy the block. Just because you're in the entertainment industry and they're a bunch of entertainers and they don't know jack diddly about real estate, but they know that you've been out there hustling doing real estate deals. And they trust you because they're a government worker and you're a government worker. Because they're a government contractor, you're a government contractor. Because they're a cop, you're a cop. They're a firefighter, you're a firefighter. You're an alpha, they're an alpha. You're a Q, they're a Q. They're a delta. They're a ski-wee. In other words, there's things that you do outside of real estate that you're doing it with people who got money. Not in their car, not in their truck, not in their pillow, not in their refrigerator, not in the coffee can in the backyard. No, in their retirement account. And they know that in addition to this aspect that they know you because of the PTA, whatever, you also are a real estate investor. And they've always wanted to be a real estate investor, but they haven't invested the time and the energy and the blood, the sweat, and the tears to get to where you are. And so the easiest way for them to become a real estate investor is to partner with you. But if you don't call Kurt, if you don't take his number, if you don't reach out and establish that account with Quest, when they're ready to move money into your deal, it's not going to happen because you didn't take the next necessary step, which is understanding at an intimate level how this process actually works, so that when you're ready to explain it to them and they look you in the eye and they say, hey, how do I do it? You say, it's no problem. I've set up a dozen of these accounts, or I've set up 3 or 4 of these accounts. Or when I set up my account, it was easy as pie. Let me show you how to do it, and let me introduce you to the folks who handle my account. Do you get it? If you're getting it, give me a thumbs up. This one thing will totally change your life when you actually do it. This is not one of those things where you go to a webinar or seminar or sit in a ballroom and take a bunch of notes and then do nothing. The difference between where I am and where I was 20 years ago was when this guy showed me. Like, I didn't learn this. You guys know I got an MBA from the Wharton School of Business. Do you understand that nobody at the Wharton School of Business taught me how to do self-directed IRAs? But this guy standing at his booth at the Atlanta Marriott Hotel 20 years ago, 2001, at a seminar in Atlanta, Georgia in March, and took the time to explain it to me. And I'm like, okay, give it to me again. Like, how come I got a Wharton MBA and I've never heard this stuff before? How come I've worked for the biggest real estate developer in the Washington, D.C. area, the richest man in Washington, and nobody told this to me before? Give it to me one more time. And he did. And then he gave me his card. He told me to call his assistant. And I swear to God, his assistant was so patient, walked me through the whole process. Kurt Power can do the same thing for you when you reach back to him and ask him to do it. But if you walk away from this training and you don't do anything with it, what's that saying? There once was a point in time that people weren't allowed to read, and then people could read and they refused to. Who's worse off? Do not let this session go past. Do not let the sun go down, and you don't at least fire off an email to Kurt and say, hey man, I heard about you through that webinar that you did with Sherman. Who do I need to talk to in your organization to set me up 2 or 3 of these accounts? Me, my wife, my kids, my grandkids, my mom, my dad. I want to get this. I want to be all in. I want to learn how to do it. And by the way, is there any additional training? Is there anything else that you can show me? Because when I start doing my private investor presentations and raising money, I don't want to sit there and tell somebody I don't know what to do next because I didn't do what Kurt and Sherman said to do. Take action now. And as my mama said to me growing up, a word to the wise is sufficient. So anybody got any questions before we let Kurt get out of here? Because we're coming up on the witching hour. We promised we weren't going to go more than an hour and a half. We've already gone about an hour and 40 minutes. We're going to get out of here. Anybody else got any questions? Raise your hand. I mean, he'll answer questions after this, but if you got a question now, let's go ahead and get an answer right here and now, if you got one. Going once, going twice. All right, last thing, and I'll let you guys go. If you have not already done so, by the way, did you guys enjoy this? On a scale of 1 to 5, how we do tonight? Was this good stuff? Was this worth interrupting our regular schedule? Preempting our schedule? Okay, great. Please make sure you follow Kurt. Last thing, if you have not already done so, I would strongly recommend that you sign up for our upcoming training. We're going to talk to you about how to raise money. Kurt will take care of helping you set up your self-directed IRAs. And once you do that, if you will allow me to, I'll set up and show you how to actually do private investor presentations. 1-2 punch, slam dunk. You do a private investor presentation. At the end of the presentation, where I will literally give you my slides. I'll literally work with you to show you and help you perfect your presentation. If you want to do a live presentation, I'll make arrangements at my country club at Woodmore, to do a live presentation with coffee and dessert. If you don't want to do live private investor presentation, we could do it online, Zoom, just kind of like what we're doing here. And I will even give your private investor presentation for you and record it. And all the money that you raise goes to you. You'll just simply stand up and say, hey, let me introduce my business partner, Sherman, and I'll give your presentation. I'll have one little slide in there that says I'm your partner, your mentor, and we're working together on this first deal. But then afterwards, you can give it yourself. This training is going to start as soon as the masterclass that we're doing now is over. This training will start. It's going to include a session on how I raised over $1 million in one day. Again, all the money that I raised was through a syndication. All the money that I raised, for the most part, I think all but about 100,000 of it was through self-directed IRAs. Because once people hear your story and know about the deal, there's no question about, do I want to do the deal? Like, it's local, it's in their backyard, it's got a relatively high rate of return versus sitting around in a bunch of CDs, and it's secure because they can drive by it, they can touch it, feel it. Real estate beats the pants off of any other investment when you do it correctly. Even those investments that supposedly have higher rates of return, because those investments that supposedly have high rates of return, like Bitcoin, where they say they'll double your money, guess what? Sometimes they double your money, sometimes they cut it in half. Sometimes they cut it to none. So people understand, or at least they think they do, real estate. They're just looking for somebody like you who can help them get into the game. But the only way they can get into the game is by using money that they already have sitting in a retirement account and moving it into a self-directed retirement account, so that when they fill out the paperwork and call Kurt or fax it in or use their portal, it can wind up at the settlement table within 24 hours. But that can only happen if that's already set up. So Kurt will show you how to set up the accounts. I will show you how to raise the money. That's what this upcoming class is all about. And it's not just me, it's also guys like Steve Streetman. You guys know Steve Streetman raised a fund, and he was able to raise $2 million to buy a self-storage facility just north of Annapolis. They just refinanced that puppy and pulled out $3 million cash when they got through finishing all of the improvements and stuff and kicking out the deadbeat tenants that he had. And by the way, great thing about self-storage, Kurt's head's nodding, is like you can actually put a padlock on the door and then sell people stuff on the street. You don't have to go through that whole eviction process. So Steve turned that property around and refinanced it to the tune of $5 million. And he rebated all of his private investors, most of whom invested through self-directed IRAs. And then he and his partners pocketed the difference. This is what you're going to learn in this upcoming class. How to do more money equals more deals, right? And we're going to talk about syndications. We're going to talk about one-off deals, one investor, one deal. We're going to start slow, build fast, start with residential, and then build into commercial. We're going to go through all of that stuff. And like I said, Kurt will take care of helping you set up the accounts. He'll help you take care of you setting up the accounts for yourself, your family, and your prospective clients. And I will teach you and show you in this next upcoming masterclass how and where to get the money. So for those of you who are interested in this next class, I'm going to type this, put this in the chat box, and you have not already signed up for it, please, please, please go to wheretogetthemoney.com, check out the information, 100% money back guarantee. And if you're ready to take the next step, take that next step and be a part of this upcoming class. Okay? Just simply go to wheretogetthemoney.com. It's got 100% money back guarantee. If at any point in time after the first couple classes, like, this is just not what I thought it was going to be, ask for a full refund. And oh, by the way, there is a payment plan. There's literally, I think it's a 4 or 5 month payment plan. Pay as you go. All right. And it's got a 200% money back guarantee. Please listen to me very carefully. If at the end of 1 year after the class is over, so the class is going to go for about 3 months, and then you still have another year on top of it, so that's 15 months. If at the end of 1 year you have not raised at least $500,000, and by the way, guess where that's coming from? Self-directed IRAs. If you have not raised at least $500,000, I will refund you 100% of what you invested to be a part of this class, and all the lessons, all the cheat sheets, all access is yours to keep. In other words, you can have your cake and eat it too. If you don't raise at least $500,000 within 12 months of when the class is over, I will refund you 100% of what you invested, and everything you got as a part of the class, all the training materials, all the cheat sheets, my private investor slides, all of my notes on how to do private investor presentations, all of that is yours to keep. So clearly, No risk on you. All the risk is on me. But again, a key component of making this work is reaching back out to Kurt and saying, hey, man, I need to go ahead and get that self-directed IRA account set up for me because I'm about to go work with Sherman and I'm going to bring all these investors in and I'm going to send them your way. And I need to know how this works before I start sending people your way. Got it? Don't be the guy who's like telling people what to do, but you haven't done it yourself. Don't be that guy. You guys know this stuff works. You've heard the testimonials. Oh, by the way, here's Sean. Sean used to always have his baseball cap over his head. This man was a dynamo for like 5 years when he was active with real investors. Right? You understand? We're an academy. People come, they graduate, they move on. He was a dynamo. And every time he took his picture, he'd pull that baseball cap over his face. I finally went up to Sean and said, Sean, what's up with this? Why can't we take your picture? He says, it's okay to take my picture, but I got to have the cap on because I work undercover. And I can't have my face out there. His buddy Tim, who's also a cop, these are the two guys who raised $1 million off of 2 private investor presentations to cops. It's said another way, they raised $1 million showing their private investor presentation to about 10 people. The first one was retired cops who pulled money out of their pension, put it in a self-directed IRA. The second presentation they gave was up in New Jersey to a fellow police officer who ran the pension fund, and they gave him $500,000 from the pension fund. Oh yes, you can do that too. All right. So you're going to get all the cheat sheets, all the checklists. You're going to get all the bonuses, and one last bonus, and then we're going to get out of here. Those of you who sign up today, forget about this 1 o'clock thing, but sign up today. I'm also going to throw in our rehabbing class, and you guys know that's the #1 class on how to rehab houses. I'm going to throw that in there as a 2-for-1 bonus for free, but that's only for people who take action today. All right. So more money equals more deals. You guys have seen the testimonials. You know people's stories. Raising money is the keys to the kingdom. And it's a 1-2 punch. Understanding and reaching out to Kurt and understanding how the self-directed IRA process works, and then working with me so I can help you to learn how to do private investor presentations by me first giving you my private investor presentation and working with you on this, because that's how you raise private investor money. Talking to people about what you do, talking to people what you're doing, and then showing them how to get a hold of Kurt and his team and letting them set up the self-directed IRA program. And obviously understanding some of the do's and don'ts, like we'll cover that in the class and Kurt will also cover that. But the bottom line is all these people that you see, their lives are changed once they understood how to raise private investor money. That's the key. And the way you do it is learning how to do private investor presentations and having somebody like Kurt Power on your team on speed dial. Those two things together is how you raise $500,000 within 12 months. It's really just that simple. And the first step is to grab Kurt's information that's in there. And the second step is make sure you're part of this masterclass when it starts in a couple weeks. It'll be starting in about 3 weeks. Okay. All right. So with that, I'm done. Kurt, I'll give you the last word, and then you want to talk about.
Well, take action, guys. It's the central theme of tonight. Take action. I hope I wake up tomorrow morning and I got a bunch of emails to respond to and a bunch of appointments to set and a bunch of people taking action that I can be a small part of helping. Again, I make myself available to you. I will always get back to you. If I don't respond the first time within 24 to 48 hours, you're going to get a response. I promise you that. So call me, email me anytime, any questions about the process. I'll take whatever time you need. And the most important thing is that you have the education and the confidence and you know the process to do this, because we want the most educated clients at Quest. We want you to know what you're doing and feel comfortable doing it so that you continue to do it and then continue to bring more people into that ecosystem as well. So enjoyed being here tonight, man. Really did. And hopefully someday we can do this in person when things are somewhat normal again.
Well, we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. And I appreciate everybody who made it out today. I know we interrupted your prior class, and I appreciate you guys giving me that interruption. I hope you're okay with it. And then we got one more session, which will be the third in the series. And I've already got that lined up. We've got somebody who's going to come in, fantastic guy, going to come in and talk about his ability to fund around Kurt. This is somebody who provides hard money type loans and then converts those hard money loans into 30-year investor mortgages so that you can begin the process of building your portfolio just like we described in the prior session. Literally buying single family houses with none of your own money using a combination of private investors and this other, and you guys learned that tonight. And what you're going to learn in our next upcoming session, using the right kind of what I would call specialty lenders. They're not hard money lenders, they're specialty lenders. And that's going to be our third and last part of the series. And we'll also make sure you get his contact information. And then pulling it all together is simply a function of reaching back to Kurt, reaching back to the guests that we're going to have for our third session, and being a part of this training that I'm going to be doing this next masterclass series, specifically on raising, I call it unlimited capital, because that's exactly what it is. Stop and think about it. How many houses can you buy when you're using none of your own money? That's a Chuck Norris question with a Chuck Norris answer. All of them. All right. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Kurt, so much. Really appreciate you. I hope everybody did cut and paste his information. I hope you guys did get his email and reach back out to him. And at this point, we're going to say goodbye for now. And Kurt, we'll be back in touch because I got a couple more accounts I need to open up with you personally, as well as a couple of investors that we got coming into a couple of deals that we're doing. Awesome. And guys, I'll see you guys next week at our next masterclass. All right.
Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good night.